Welcome to Fort St. Miguel. We have arrived here. It's about 5 kilometers from the downtown here in Campeche. This fort was built for the purposes of a expected British invasion here, which never occurred, and now houses a museum, a collection of artifacts from the lost city of Calakmul here, which is about an hour southeast of the city here. And let's head inside and have a look around. There's actually a note here that says protection of the city of Campeche was completed with the construction of 6 fortifications around its exterior. This one here was actually completed in 1801 after being designed in 1779. Some further modifications were carried out in 1801, including a drawbridge, guardhouse, and barracks and so forth. So that's kind of the 5-cent background history on Fort San Miguel. So let's take a walk inside here and have a look around. You can see this fort was built with a dry moat around it. There's one of the guards down there, still working to this day, and even has a wooden drawbridge here. So we're inside with 75 pesos to get into the museum here inside Fort San Miguel, and for the first time in a long time there was no extra fee for video equipment. Amazing! So as I mentioned, this museum primarily houses artifacts that were found at the city of Calakmul, which was an old Mayan city it's about 100 kilometers, I think, southeast of here. And so it features artifacts from the pre-classic period, classical, like sort of the contemporary period at the height of the Mayan Empire, and then some of the post-classic and more modern historical artifacts as well. So we'll take a walk around because there are some very, very cool artifacts found in this museum that are world famous. So here is an example of some of the types of artifacts we'll see here today. There's this pot, which is 200 to 600 AD, which would sort of be in that range of the classic period. Then there's some pre-classic, like this figure that's here. This goes back to between 300 BC and 200 AD. And then this fragment of a vase that's here as well, from that same contemporary classic period. Beautiful artwork on it. And here's some more examples here. This one actually says it's possibly a Guatemalan origin, so there must have been some trade going on in the area between the Mayans here and in other cities. And this massive sculpture was sort of getting towards the late classic period. So this would be like 600 to 800 AD. Again, these were all found in the same location. To give you an idea of the Mayan civilization, some of the archaeological sites, and some of the movement through it. So here's Mexico here, coming up to the Yucatan Peninsula. We've got Belize, Guatemala, and then the Honduras and El Salvador. So really that was kind of the farthest south and west for the Maya. These little symbols here kind of indicate what periods the Mayan people lived in. So you can see here is the examples. So you get the pre-classic period from 1500 BC right through to the post-classic of 1527 AD, which is when the Spanish arrived, wiped out the Maya within a number of years. That kind of put an end to the whole entire Mayan civilization. But here where we are, you can see at the top here, so there's Campeche, and there's Edsna, where we're going tomorrow. And then you can see sort of some of these sites. There's Uxmal and Izamal and some others here. Some of these places were maintained throughout the entire 3,000 years of the Mayan Empire. It certainly filters out as you go this way, You can see that some of these were only, for a shorter period of time, but primarily the main chunk of the Mayan Empire rested through the Yucatan Peninsula up here, and then down into central, into Belize, and down through this way. This is one of the oldest pieces here. Very simple, plain looking, but then as you travel through into the kind of contemporary and then late classic periods, you get into more artwork, more design, more paintings and sculptures, things like that as well. This here is an incense jar, and there's another incense jar there as well. One of the things that is worth noting, I suppose, is that while the general consensus is that the Mayan civilization was wiped out when the Spanish arrived, in some ways that's still not quite true, because obviously descendants of the Mayans still live today. There's believed to be about 30 Mayan villages, many of which still reside in areas that were the locations of some of those Mayan cities. There's approximately 8 million people in total that are descendants directly from the Maya that still live today across, there's Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and parts into Honduras and El Salvador as well. So while the main Mayan civilization was wiped out, there are still many, many peoples who still live today, and many of them still speak the language that came from that centralized Mayan language originally, even though some of it was splintered off into more regional dialects. Take it back. There was a video feed after all. I get into the second room here and they're like, wait, where's your video feed? And I was like, there wasn't one. I clearly showed the girl at the front desk my camera and she was like, whatever. So yeah, anyway, 70 pesos for the filming, 75 to get in. So as we walk in through here, this next section here involves what they call the urbanism section. And these columns actually decorated some of the entryways of Calakmul city. So you can see that these are very intricately carved with the Mayan scripture here on the front. So you can see with columns like this that there was a real concerted effort to decorate and make the city look as beautiful as possible. Now, these are just stones, but what they've also, of course, learned over time is that most of these stones were painted. Red was a very common color, and how they determined that was that they had found pigments within the stones themselves that remained from the original painting that was done. So this is not probably it, but here is an example here. You can see there's some of these red tones in amongst the cracks of some of these. So that would be an example of how they were able to determine that there were pigments and painting of various colors used on these rocks. Here's an example of the city of Edzna. So I'm hoping to get there tomorrow is my plan. And this consists of a large different section of buildings. And here is for scale the size of the main temple of 5 steps, and then you can see the little person there standing next to it for scale. So I would say this one here is probably original and repaired, and then you can see here like where the top pieces, there's 2 there, and then this restored piece here to kind of connect it all together. So in one of the structures at El Tigre, they actually found all of these arrowheads that were put there as an offering. And according to the information, this is the kind of stuff that would be done when a new building was completed. and then a ceremony would be held to, you know, celebrate the opening, and then an offering would be placed there. And in this case, there's an offering of all these different arrowheads. So very similar to how things are still done today. These are capstones that have been placed on buildings when the building construction was completed to indicate, you know, who built them, when they were finished, you know, those types of things. And like you still see those today. So in, you know, in cities around the world, you know, they finish a big building and they put that last brick in or that last plate in. It says, you know, this building was finished on this date, blah, blah, blah. That's literally what these are, same thing. This is all about the types of rituals that were used when people pass away, some of the burial routines, and some of the most famous things that were discovered and now in this museum are in this very room. So let's take a little look around and see what we find. So here was an example here, a recreation of a tomb and the types of offerings that would have been found within the tomb. So a person was buried and wrapped up, and then you would see offerings, you know, different types of ceramics, jewelry, those types of things would all be included. And here was another example here. So I'm guessing that this would have been someone who was of higher prominence, given the amount of jewels and things that were buried with them. And then this would be a more simplistic type of burial site for more common folk, we'll say. So one of the most famous things that would occur when someone was buried, if you were at the various highest level of Mayan society, is they would create a death mask for you. And many of those masks were actually created of jewels, jade being a particularly very popular one. And in here are some examples of some of those masks. So here's an example here of one that you can see it's got the full face and then the crown of jewels that surrounded it, fully made of jade. Here was another one, even more intricate, that had an example of one of the gods' faces actually adorned the bottom piece of it here. So this section here, these sculptures are showing some of the different ritualistic scarification that was done, which was a body beautifying process with the Maya. And how they would do that is they would, you know, create wounds, and then they would, you know, rub soil and dirt in them so that the scars would then have some volume. So you can see here on this one, as an example, the face would have, you know, lines and designs on it that were permanent. Here's some examples of some of the late classic period. One of the deities was this bird. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name because I will mess it up, but I'll put it on the screen here. One of the things it talks about in there was one of the medical conditions that actually a lot of Mayan men in particular suffered from, called hydropsy, which was like a fluid retention within the bodies. And how they discovered this was through a combination of looking at the design of the artwork and noticing that, you know, the artwork often matched those symptoms, as well as there was actual written documentation from the Maya which discussed this medical issue as being a common problem that many of the men suffered from. So just go to the top side here of Fort San Miguel for a moment just to have a look around. And yeah, you can see that this was built with the express intent of being able to keep an eye on things out over the Gulf of Mexico. It would circle all the way around, with the only entrance being that drawbridge that we came across when we first got here. Here I am, standing guard, watching for pirates. So here was an example of one of the altars that was found. This one at the top of Uxul, here in Campeche. And it was one of the largest pieces of hieroglyph that was intact, containing around 150 different glyphs on it, with names and dates and those types of things included. And you can see the dates because the dates would be wider here, so they would actually encompass a longer, wider strip. That would be indicative of a date with the other text, much of which was too worn to be able to be seen. So one of the cool things about the Maya calendar was that while they had 20-day months, and they had 18 months of those 20 days, and then they added the 5 extra, they called them the 5 bad days, I believe it was a term for them. This combination of symbols that could be used to then count out a calendar that lasted 52 years long. So it had both the ritual calendar that was 260 days, the solar calendar of 365 days, and through the combination of these different symbols, you could end up getting a total calendar of 52, it says here, 18,980 days, or 52 years per cycle. So this grand piece here was found at Edsna, and actually has the date that it was carved on it in the top left corner. So it was accurately dated directly to August the 20th of 662 is when this was made. And this stone was to recognize that is the tour of the museum here at Fort San Miguel. I got a really weird request just towards the end there from one of the guys working here. He was like, "You can record video, but you can't talk about it." I said, "What?" And he says, "Oh no, you can't document anything with the extra ticket that you paid." And I was very confused because literally everywhere else that I've been in Mexico, that ticket allows you to video record, talk about it, whatever you want. But in this case, you know, it was off limits. So if you hear a bit of a overdub in the last few minutes of this video during the walkthrough of the museum, now you know why. Anyway, it was silly. I said to him, I said, "Well, I'm just going to record the video now and then overdub it later when I get back to my hotel." And he was like, "Well, yeah, that's fine." Ugh, it's so strange. I don't quite understand the whole mixed message I get sometimes with the museums here. And, you know, sometimes you pay, sometimes you don't. Sometimes every person in the museum asks you for your video ticket, and other times they don't care. I was at Monte Alban for hours, paid the extra fee for recording while there, and wasn't asked for it once. Here I was today for, I was only here an hour-ish, and I got asked 7 times, 8 times for the ticket. So they're really a weird mix. I don't fully understand it. I'm trying to not be, abrasive about it or overly aggressive about it or anything like that. I'm just, one guy being quiet while I talk. I don't even have to scream because I got my microphone on, so I can keep my volume down. And yeah, it's just bizarre. I don't get it. One of the great mysteries of Mexico is the museums here, I guess. Anyway, all good. No big deal. I got 90% of it shot the way I wanted to, and the last 10% will be an overdub. And it is what it is. I mean, it's, if that's what they want, and that's the rules I'll follow. I just don't understand them, especially where they're just so different from place to place. Anyway, now I got to figure out how to get back into town. It was about a quarter of a kilometer up the hill driving in the taxi, but there's no taxis just sitting here. So I'm either just going to wait a little bit and see if a taxi shows up, or I'll walk down to the main road and pick up a Colectivo back to the center of town. So we'll see what happens. But for now, I'm just going to sit here for a few minutes and cool off because I am very warm. It's nice here in the shade, and I got some water, so I'm going to take care of that first. So I thought I would do just a quick room review here at the place I stayed at for the last 4 nights in Campeche. Great spot, great location. I don't really have much of anything to complain about, to be honest. So this was the Hotel Edzna, which is available on Booking and all the other usual sites. I booked it here for 4 nights. I'll put the information on the screen here. And so this is a old historical building that's been converted into a hotel. There's like 4 or 5 rooms here, so bed was comfortable. My personal preference is some better pillows, but I know some people like thinner pillows, so that's totally up to the person. But the bed itself was good. Lots of space here to work on. So there's a table here, a couple end tables with the lamp. Little bar fridge was here as well. There was even a hammock here if you wanted to lay in a hammock. I didn't use it at all, but a nice big flat screen TV on the wall. And then in through here was the nice bathroom, which worked out quite well. It was a nice shower here, had some good hot water. Toilet, all the usual stuff. So, but that was a quick review of the place I stayed in. So again, it was a Hotel Edzna. It's right here in the historic old city, very near to some of the parks, very near to the water, like 5 minutes to the water. No problems at all. So if you're looking for a place to stay in Campeche that's reasonably priced and quiet, and you got your own private room, private bathroom, really good internet here as well. Wi-Fi was nice and strong. This would be a great option for you to stay in. They have some bigger rooms as well, so this is just a double-sized bed. But if you're here as a couple, they have some beds, I believe queen size as well. So that was also an option. Anyway, thumbs up. Oh, one other thing. Air conditioning worked great here the whole time. It's been really hot while I've been here. It's been like 27, 28, 29, and then with the humidity of like 34, 35, 36. And it's kept this room nice and cool the whole time I've been here. So good stuff. Highly recommend it. And definitely one of the better places I've stayed in Mexico. So that's going to do it from Campeche. 3 full days here, it was a great time. Going out to see the ruins of Edzna was incredible. And then just, being around the town here, checking out the Maya Museum and just the city in general. It's a great spot. I think it's sort of off the list of a lot of people's choices to go in Mexico. I wouldn't skip it if I were you. In fact, if I wasn't already had plans to move on from here today, I probably would have stayed a little bit longer just to soak in the atmosphere, and the city itself is fantastic. So highly recommended. Yeah, anyway, so I'm off today. I'm heading to Merida, where I will be for a week. Looking forward to that experience. It's supposed to be a great city, and we're getting right to the top of the Yucatan Peninsula here now. So my time in Mexico is quickly coming to an end after 3+ months here. It's going to be almost 4 months by the time I'm done, and yeah, it's been incredible. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, or leave a comment below to let me know that you were here. If you want to support me further, there's some links in the description below to Patreon, or one-time donation through another site, or if you want to pick up some cool Wanderbeard merch, I have t-shirts, mugs, stickers, those sorts of things available at the store link below, or you can purchase it here directly through YouTube now. Just go to the store channel and the products are listed there for sale as well. And remember, life is short. Wander. I'll see you in the next video.